Hello, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com. Welcome to another episode of the Language Facilitation Helpline podcast, and thank you for tuning in today. Every action you take to help the late talkers in your life is important, that the fastest results come when you enjoy the process of language facilitation. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Spotlight interview here on the Waves of Communication channel. And today I have a very special guest who is Stephanie Michelle. Stephanie helps introverts activate their leadership power to make their impact as a leader as they define it. So we're going to be talking today about how you lead your language facilitation journey if you are an introvert. Tell us a little bit about, we've talked about the parents and caregivers' role as a language facilitator and how you can help potentially share your wisdom as introverts and help some of my introverted language facilitator parents.
Hello, Marcy. So thank you so much for having me. And I love that we are having this conversation, leading by example and having those solid communication skills and having a level of empathy and patience and looking outside of yourself in that realm and in the parenting realm. So there's a lot of, there are lots of nuggets of wisdom here. Primarily has to do with strategies that your listeners can use to alleviate anxiety, build confidence on top of that, build connection with their children, and then create that desired impact.
That is perfect. Fits very perfectly with our Waves of Communication mission because this is the year of connection. We talk about that a lot on this channel. And in my workbook, I even have a level where parents can analyze their level of connection with their child. And these topics that you are talking about are right along in there and aligned. And now I know that we talked about how the role of a language facilitator is a leadership role, and the leader has to be vocal. You have to be out there talking and providing these language models for these late talking kids because you're the source of their good learning of the language that they need to pick up. Now, I have had experiences with even clients in my program with parents who are just naturally introverted, and they may not even see themselves as introverted, but they're just not very talkative, or they're somewhere along that range, right? Anywhere along that range. You have strategies to help these parents connect and take on the power, the leadership, the responsibility to get this communication done. Let's dig in. Tell us some wisdom.
Yeah, so let's first, it's great that you brought up this reality that when it comes to verbally processing versus thinking thought processes, introverts are more likely to have very active minds. However, especially when it comes to this leadership role in language facilitation of a child, right? There's this opportunity to be really mindful of, okay, the way that I naturally process is internally, but what's actually going to serve the greater purpose here is to consciously externalize those communications that happen. So one of the key ways that I like to empower my clients to be in that headspace of taking those pauses and verbalizing more than previously was natural to them is to make sure that you are energized. And a key way to do that is by managing your energy, because if we look at how introverts typically get energy, feel really alive, it's not necessarily through social interaction, it's through the more solitary activities like reading, writing, going on a walk, engaging in some solitary artistic activity, for example. So if you are go on the road to burnout, not taking that time for yourself, then you're going to be in this mode of course, you're not verbalizing things because you're just getting through everything in your mind. So this may seem counterintuitive, but I'm inviting you to take more pauses. I call these solitude sandwiches. So basically what you do is, let's say that you have an activity, maybe the social activity is being really mindfully present, having a dedicated hour of going through a storybook with your kid. So let's say that you typically feel depleted. That energetically can be relayed to your kid and they can feel less engaged. So to be fully present, what you want to do, let's say that the peanut butter in the sandwich is that activity. Then on either end, the slices of bread are your solitude. So the tip here is to find out the ratio that works best for you. If you can only manage 5, 10, 15 minutes of being within your own energy and stepping away from everything, then that's going to be enough. And the key here is to be fully present in your solitude and fully present when you are engaging with your child in this way. And what I found with people who implement this strategy is that there's such a greater level of connection that becomes possible because we're no longer rushing from one thing to the next, and then crashing and burning at the very end, totally depleted. So this is something that is really simple that you can start to implement right away.
Yeah, no, I love this. It's really energy management. Well, and first of all, you have to kind of be aware of yourself first. What kind of energy level, meaning how much is in my bucket, kind of, right? Do I have enough to actually engage with my child in a way that I can be fully present in this opportunity that I created, whatever it is, if you're helping them get dressed or if you're helping them play at the park or if you're helping them do whatever. Just because you put that on your schedule as this is the time I'm going to do language facilitation doesn't mean that you're always prepared energetically to give, because it is a very high energy job being a language facilitator. It really is. And if you come into your experience already feeling depleted just by the rest of your life being busy, you're not going to be effective. And that really makes sense. And that's, I think, why parents would struggle. Can you help us now? How about a mini? If a parent has a very attached late talker, this often also happens. These parents don't even have a moment for solitude. These kids are hanging on them all the time. They're relying on them for everything in their life, and they barely have a moment. Even if it's sneaking to the bathroom or I don't know, whatever you've got, what parents are doing, I suppose they're sneaking off to the bathroom to get a moment. But give us a couple of tips that are going to help a super overworked, super frustrated, super empty parent charge their batteries enough in those sandwich points to be able to get to the peanut butter in the middle.
Yeah. So, there are a variety of ways to make it happen. And the key is to really prioritize it. And I know I've certainly, heard particularly parents say, and with empathy, right, that I can't get away. And it's like, well, maybe what it looks like is a few minutes in the bathroom. And that's something you begin to intentionally do more often. And, there's another strategy that I would like to introduce here. So when it comes to really maximizing those moments of solitude, however far and few between they may seem, one technique that I like to recommend is called a coin bridge. So this is another original concept that is really mindful of our self-talk. So for example, through the lens of the situation that a lot of your listeners are in, that I have at least one family member directly experiencing as well, is this: sometimes there can be emotions of fear and thoughts of, oh my gosh, this is the reality, catastrophizing, what the potential future ramifications are. And again, that presence is lost with these thoughts that are spiraling. So what a coin bridge does is takes that intentional pause, which I know for the stressed out, burned out parent can feel like, what the heck? But trust me here, like try it for a couple minutes on either end of interacting with your kid and have it be just standard, totally standard. And what you'll find is you may become aware of, I don't necessarily call these limiting beliefs, because sometimes we think that certain beliefs are just true. And they're actually limiting beliefs, but we believe that they're true. So just first identify beliefs that you believe are true that you don't like.
Well, yeah, and I think too that idea of I never have a chance. My child is always on my hip. These are extremes that lead into those mindset traps, right? Where you're literally, it's not true that you never have a moment alone. Even if your child's hanging on your hip and dangling from you, you can stop. You can take a few deep breaths. You can close your eyes. You can remember your place, right? I am here with my child. I love my child. My child is struggling now. I'm struggling now. Just that realization of I'm here. I'm human. I can do this. And, sort of get your feet back under you to realize it's not as bad as maybe you're making it come out to be in your mind. You elevate we elevate these never and always. He's never going to talk and he's always going to have tantrums. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you hear. And then, especially like you said, if it's fueled by an external input, somebody saying, is your kid ever going to do that? Or, you hear your kid, you see them having the tantrum or something like that, and you think, I can't do this. I think that's the biggest thing is people give up on the process. How do you help your clients who I know are not necessarily on the language facilitation journey, but they're on a business journey with all the ups and downs and things that come and go and outside triggers and stuff? How do you help people stay focused on their mission and their work with all these other external triggers?
Yeah, so maintain that element of focus. I'll go back to the coin bridge really quick, just so that your listeners have that concept.
Yeah, really explain that for us.
Yeah. So basically, it's when you become aware of a thought you don't love, and then instead of looking in the mirror, saying affirmations like, everything is going great, everything is amazing. If you've ever tried that before, then you may kind of call BS and say, you know what, that doesn't feel true. So
it's not my reality. Yeah, that's not what I'm experiencing right now. Yes, exactly.
So what this does, so let's use an example of the belief of wow, this, experience with my kid is so difficult. It will never get better. Let's say that that's the belief, that when you're honest with yourself, that's kind of what you're thinking. That's on repeat subconsciously. That's reinforced again whenever you experience something, and then it feels even more cemented. So even becoming aware of that, and it is a limiting belief, even though it feels so true, and maybe it is true in your reality at the moment. Instead of then identify, okay, what's the flip side of that coin? Maybe the flip side of the coin is my child is making such amazing strides. They're speaking completely, beyond their age level, and, just kind of allow yourself to really go there. And then what's the middle? What's the more neutral statement? And so let's say the more neutral statement is like, they are progressing every day.
Yeah.
And so allowing yourself to have that limiting belief become a trigger for the neutral statement. And over time, what my clients have found using this technique is that the neutral statement becomes the new baseline. When you consciously reframe a belief time and time again. And I am such an advocate of mirror work. Take pause. You're in the bathroom anyway, right? So look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say it aloud to yourself, and allow yourself to identify the emotions that you're feeling. Any sort of, if you feel like you need a cathartic release to cry, let yourself do these things, because what can keep us disconnected is when we're just in that go, go, go mode. So one of the key takeaways here is to slow down and implement these strategies that you may feel like you don't have time for, but trust that people have used these strategies and they work, and they can definitely work for you too.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. And, I think the point is, you need them. Just admit it, everybody. Life isn't always peachy. And we hit points where we feel like we're at a brick wall. We don't know what to do. And in that case, you can always dial it back. Like you said, you look at one side of the coin, it's never going to happen. It's always going to be this way. But then you look at, let's just pie in the sky for a minute. Let's just dream for a minute about our potential. because that's always the flip side of the coin, is where you find the potential, the place that you weren't looking, right? You were only looking at that reality, this rough patch, you know. And I think let's talk a little bit more. I'd like to dig into the introvert part, because, you know, these mindset things happen for even people, like I said, that go, go, go business happens for
Mhm.
people who aren't introverted at all. They never stop. But I think, you know, just because someone is introverted doesn't mean that in their mind they're not go, 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 going all the time. And I think that's what we're talking about. It's sort of like that duck analogy. The duck is going calmly along the top of the water, looking very calm, but underneath those legs are also going like that. Is that a profile that matches an introvert?
So, okay, so when it comes to introversion, introverts get our energy from solitude and tend to internally process instead of verbally process, tend to be specialists and really hone in on one thing versus being generalists. And, another thing that I'll mention is when it comes to being introverted, social anxiety and all of these things that have been talked about in terms of being synonymous, correlation is not causation, right? That the whole concept of my book, Confident Introvert, is really, it stems from me having this level of connectivity and presence and confidence in social situations, and people assuming, just saying like in the same breath, oh, you're an extrovert. And I was like, what? And I knew that this is something that we need to kind of bring to light, that this level of confidence that really comes from what I spoke about earlier, that baseline calm, and then building that sense of confidence on top of that, connections, impact, really knowing that as an introvert, while most social situations may be a little more draining, it's not black and white. There are some situations that either can naturally enliven you, or you may find, as you implement more of these strategies, as you do more personal development work, that you're able to actually shift and get a greater sense of energy and enlivenment from doing certain activities, like, for example, reading with your child, right? Like, just, and being,
Yeah, I think that's it. It's all about how your intention, right? I hear you when you talk about your affirmations and the thing, when you talk in the mirror to yourself and you look yourself in the eye, what do I intend to do with this? I have time, I have energy, I have connection, I have love, I have knowledge. And that's the other thing that I appreciated about what you said about introverts, where an extrovert doesn't stop talking about what they know. An introvert doesn't stop thinking and contemplating and learning and expanding on what they know. They just don't share it with the world. They become experts at what they're doing. And these parents that are introverts that maybe aren't talking a ton with their child, this is what I see happening. They're developing a telepathy with their kids because they are so good at just displaying when they do need to talk. They say the right words the right way at the right time. It's not too much, right? Sometimes it's not enough because the late talker needs more than that person's used to saying, but that's the mindset shift. That's just a shift of, oh, my child needs me to talk more, I'll talk more. And it's not a problem for them. It's just a realization that, oh, I guess I haven't been talking enough because I've been really in my head and kind of telepathy communicating. My kid understands me. I understand my kid. We're all good in our quiet household. It's not a talkative household, but still there is connection. Still there is communication. It's just not talky all the time. So and when a parent has a child who realizes they're all in that situation, and the job now is to elevate out of that because of the social anxiety, maybe we're not so good at sharing our ideas, so we just get used to this energetic comfort zone, but you can't generate that without speech, outside of your little bubble of your family. And if a parent is empowering a child to bring their effort out, I think that's where you start, is in this connection, in this nice jivey space that you've got together. And the language facilitator, I help them elevate the child out of it so that everybody's comfortable at the same time. It's not like, you got to do this now, go push them off the cliff, which is what an introvert is scared of. That's, like you said, there's that underlying fear, like, you're not going to force me, are ya? Right? And I get this idea where the strategies that you're suggesting, where you're sandwiching the kind of effort we've got to make, because we've got to do something sometime. We can't sit here forever, because that's comfort zone, and then we're getting, no progress. But in order to take the effort, in order to make the effort that's the right effort, it has to be sandwiched with space. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and I really appreciate what you brought up as well about this higher calling, this focus on, okay, so this historically has been your level of comfort, and it's time to expand. It's not just about you, it's about all of the potential and possibility of this life that you get to help nourish and foster and grow, and to be led by that excitement and that curiosity of what is possible. You know what I was just reminded of? If you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, there's certain pieces of that book that I think are useful and relevant today. Not all of it, but there was this one segment that had to do with a boy who was born with a hearing deficiency. And he was told that he would never be able to hear. And his father decided that he was going to treat him completely normally and put him in relatively, normal schooling, and talk to him like he could hear, and, and also have grace with him when he was having a hard time hearing. And, there was this instance in the book where this kid was growing their confidence, and they ended up eventually, against all odds, being able to hear, because in large part because of the nurture. And this parents, there wasn't fear. There was just so much love of, oh, this is something that someone says you can't do, but I think you're the exception. So we're going to do this.
Yeah. And I think that is the mindset of just about every parent that follows my program, because they do hear a lot in their environment about their kids are judged, their kids are labeled, their kids are diagnosed, then they're brought into therapies, remember, who have some financial benefit from signing them up for a long course of rehab at some point, and there's always those second guessing. Is it right? Am I sure? But this is a way to really know if it feels good. I think how the process is feeling is the real important thing here. How it's feeling with you. Is it feeling connected, or is it feeling isolated? Is it feeling supportive? Because am I supporting this child, or am I so isolated that I can't give them what they need? And then it's not very hard to expand and give support. This is your child. This is the kid that you love, right? It's your own baby. So it is easier for parents to overcome some of this. I'm not a talkative person. And so you don't have to be like, that's the other thing that I just want to mention for any parents out there who are introverts and they feel like, I've got to do this. You don't have to do it all at once. You start with basics, very easy. You flip that coin over and look at the possibility. But what was important about what Stephanie said was you have to find a place in the middle where you can start, where you can take a step. So with language facilitation, it might be just choosing one time a day for you to practice your before and after your sandwich or your coin flip strategy around that one target goal, helping your kid get dressed, helping your kid eat better. It doesn't have to be talking even. It can be any of those areas. And as you build their confidence to learn these skills, it can be their fun thing too, right? If they're riding a bike or swimming or doing something like that. If you're fostering that late talkers, what we call superpowers, then their natural confidence is going to help them overcome the introversion, the anxiety around around the social. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah. So Marcy, yeah, essentially, you know, to even expand upon what you just shared, really emphasizing emotion even. And because oftentimes, let's say if there is that telepathy that's happening or the nonverbal communication that, let's say, that your listeners have become so well versed in, that, you know, gets the point across that isn't necessarily translatable to them connecting with others, that's where it kind of falls a little short, even though it works in the present. There's this opportunity, if there is an outburst, like, you know, let's say a tantrum, for example, that understanding that that's coming from overwhelm and using language as a tool is actually going to alleviate that outburst, and being the one that's rooted and remains calm, versus kind of meeting that
Reactive.
energy
Yeah.
with the same energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this does take a lot of, it does take a lot of patience. So I just want to commend, you know, your listeners and parents who are putting in the work and really dedicated to making this happen.
Yeah, they are. And I commend them too every day because, you know, they're signing up for a big job. They're changing their own mindset. They're coming out of their own comfort zone because, you know, introverts, that's their thing. They develop a nice comfort zone. I always think about them as the ones that like the duvet dive days, right?
Mhm.
Because you can go in deep and think and create and all of that stuff in your own space. But I also know that all people crave connection. And even if connection feels hard for you, that doesn't mean that you don't still crave it. So even if your late talker seems introverted, so that's the other thing that I wanted to mention really quick is these late talkers themselves seem very introverted because they are actually intentionally isolating away from people, people who are pressuring them usually to try to do things they don't want to do or mold them or control them or things like that. And parents can see signs that their kids are disconnecting. And that's kind of what I call that. Introversion doesn't have to be a bad thing as long as there is always an opportunity to connect. So can you provide just maybe a strategy to help parents whose kids are not wanting to connect with them, that they're kind of pushing away and things like that?
Yeah. So when it comes to, if you're finding that there isn't receptivity, there's a distinction that I'd like to make here. So sometimes through, let's say, a lens of connection, sometimes we think, oh, if we have the intention of being helpful, if we have the intention of being loving, that's enough. When, especially to a child and even to many adults, when we lead from a place, a desire of wanting to understand, in addition to wanting to express and be loved, that is where that connection is bridged. So asking yourself, how are you taking the steps to take pauses and to try to actively understand and really have that next level of patience? And let's say, especially in those harder moments where there's an emotional outburst, to be able to even ask what's wrong, with the understanding that could actually cause more sort of confusion if there aren't the words yet to articulate it. So going back to basics, and I even use this strategy with some of my clients who are struggling with giving names, giving words to their emotions, giving it a shape or a color or where it lives in their body. And especially because in the experience of a tantrum, it's very somatic, it's very in the body. So being able to start to give language in a more childlike way with colors and shapes and textures can begin to help them understand themselves and you understand them more.
Oh, that is my favorite strategy. That is my favorite. Help them visualize it. Late talkers are visual beings because they don't have a spoken language. They use a lot of gesture and stuff. That is an amazing strategy. So hopefully today, everybody, you've learned a few things about how to connect and sort of what's going on with the introversion. If you're feeling it, if you're seeing it in your late talker, if that's something that's going on with you. Now, Stephanie has a a resource, a freebie to share with us today. Tell us about what you're going to share and about the resources that you have available.
Yes. Okay. So I'm so excited to offer your listeners a free chapter of Confident Introvert, my human connection book. And this, you can find this at thestephaniemichelle.com/freebie. And this is the freebie on understanding your personality. So if you are an introvert, your child is an introvert, this chapter is going to really help break down and help you understand, is that true? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for your child? And it's going to be a really great introduction into diving further and expanding upon what we've been able to talk about today.
Oh, that's perfect. What a great thing to share, because I think that's one of the things too about what is it? What is being an introvert? Am I an introvert? What does it mean for me? That's the questions I'm sure that people have questions now. And that's what the best part of an interview is, to get people curious. And that is my recommendation for everybody now. Listen, there are a lot of potential business coaches and people who work with things that are not necessarily in the education and childcare and parenting realm, but these strategies like Stephanie Michelle has shared today can really help you. And if you also are in a business mindset, you may also, and if you run a business and you want to empower yourself with these kinds of strategies to help you move forward in just about anything we talked about, if you're doing your own business, if you're working for someone, if you're a volunteer, if you're homeschooling, any of these leadership roles, right, where you are taking on the job to run something. And I always talk about how you language facilitators are the CEO of your language facilitation journey. So thank you so much for joining me again today and sharing your wisdom with us. And we'll see you all then on the next interview. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in today. With a whole range of Waves of Communication resources, from free content to customized coaching, you now have access to everything you need to elevate spoken language to infinite success. You are welcome to get your journey started with my 11-week language facilitation Journey to Speech workbook. This tool is helping parents worldwide create nonstop language facilitation opportunities that elevate spoken language beyond even their own expectations. You can access this workbook and all of the language facilitation resources on my website, wavesofcommunication.com.